don't know what to do, we daven. We daven HaKadosh Baruch Hu should leave a flag with us. Should leave our identity of who we are is going to remain here. And it's going to connect us to across the pond. That's going to connect us to Gateshead. And it's going to connect us to the Rav, our leader for 20 years. And the Mirza Hashem, with this flag, with this clarity of vision that the Rav has had for the past 20 years, which is going to continue, and we will meet the Mirza Hashem Yerushalayim, us carrying our flag, and Gateshead carrying their flags. They are very lucky. They're very lucky to have a very colorful and beautiful and strong flag. And with all our flags will meet in Yerushalayim. We'll shift to
Amen. Next speaker has been requested by the Rav. He can't even be classified as a guest speaker. He has been close with us for many years. He has given the Thursday night Chumash here, and he is a Rav in the shul in Brooklyn. Without further introduction, I'd like to ask Rav Libet Goldworth to please say a few words.
I'd rather not. They won't hear me. Bereshus harav shlita. Bereshus harav shlita. Bereshus the Magidei Shir. The very chashuva mishpachas of the Rabbanim. I won't say of yesteryear because they're ever present, but of the past. There's something extraordinary in this moment, and I feel the awesomeness of this particular hour. It looks like a brunch, but when a Kehillah Kedosha, a historic, legendary Kehillah Kedosha, has this kind of transition present in this room, is the spirit of Rab Shamshon Lefol Hirsch, Rab Shlomo Broya, Rab Yosef Broya, Rab Shimon Schwab, Rab Zechariah Geli, Lahavdil ben Chaim L'chaim, and the Rabbanim Shlita. It's not simple. It's not simple that there's an exchange and a transition of, quote unquote, if I could use such a mundane word as jobs. There's a Messiah. There's a torch being passed. I was zeicha to be here 20 years ago when that torch was passed to Rav Mantel, shlita. And since then we've become, if I may say, good friends, but friends on an elevated level because I so look up to him. One of the highlights of the year was when I would come to say the Sukkos Shir, which Reb Chaim Ashkenazi, Zechaynu Livracha, honored me on my mother's yahrzeit on Chol Hamoed Sukkos to say, but the highlight was to come into Rav Mantel's sukkah afterwards and to feel true Simchas Yontif in a sukkah kimat shel Levi Yosin. Yesterday we learned Vayidab Hashem el Moshe Lema Asei Lecha Shtei Chatzotzros, and in the mitzvah is V'soku Behen. v'noyadu elecha kol ha'eda el Pesach ha'el moed. A tekiah. Usekatem, and then v'im ba'achas yiska'u v'noyadu elecha hanasiyim roshei alfa Yisrael. Tekiyas. However, when there was the Nesiyas HaMachnas, Usekatem Trua V'nosu HaMachnois HaChoinim Keidma, Usekatem Trua Shenis V'nosu HaMachnas HaMachnois HaChoinim Teimona, Trua Yisku'u L'Masehem. So we had Tekiyas, and then we had Truas. Ubehakil es HaKohol Tisku V'loi Soriu. Extraordinary. A preidah that the Torah is telling us, of course, nothing's random. But here, be careful. Again, originally we wanted tekiah. When is that? Noyade elecha kol ha'eda. But when you're traveling, we want a trua. And then one more time. Ubahakil es hakol tisku v'loi soriu. Do not have a trua. What's meant by all this? The Malbim explains that which it says in Kadmoinim, the essential chilik between a tekiah and a trua. He says there are two, it's more than emotions. It's attitudes, emotions, feelings, thoughts that people have with regard to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everyone knows the phrase, Yiras HaRoimemus and Yiras HaOynish. In English, it's easily translatable. Yiras HaOynish is fear. Yiras HaRoimemus is awe. Two different things. What's wanted and what's hoped for and what's optimal is Yiras HaRoimemus. Someone's not afraid of a patch from a Gadol B'Yisrael. They're afraid of disapproval. No patch. Just, you're not zufrieden with my behavior because of your reimemus, and I don't live up to it. And the Chovos HaLevavos and even the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva allude to these two approaches in Avodah, and that you start with Yira and you graduate to reimemus. The tekiah represents roimemus. The Malbim even indicates that lahavdil in the Umas HaOlam, there's such a concept for a melech of trumpeting. Aber trua, by definition, is a broken sound. The broken sound is not roimemus. That's fear. Akin to a sob, like we know in Hilchos Shofar. Says the Malbim, when Klal Yisrael is being gathered together, there's roimemus, there's the tekiah. But when they're traveling, there's authority, jurisdiction, Yiras HaOynish. The sound that's needed is a trua. But then once again, Ubahakil es HaKohol, Tisku v'loi soriu. Just like at the beginning, what was the lashon that was used? V'soku bahen v'noyadu elecha kol ha'eda el Pesach ha'el moed v'im ba'achas yisko v'noyadu elecha hanasiyim. In the Roshei Alpha Yisrael, when you're in the presence of Roshei Alpha Yisrael, you think only in terms of reimemus. When you're traveling, it's more mundane. You think in terms of order. You think in terms of discipline. That's a trua. But an Eidah that comes together again after the influence of the Nesiim, they have risen to the madrega of Roimemus on their own. Taking from the Rav's beautiful address on the Golem, I think today here, we're hearing Tekiyas, no truas. We're in the presence of Nesius. Rav Mantel, soll sein gesund und stark, elevated us all. And when the Olam comes together, and they are those influenced by that Reimamus, they themselves exude Reimamus. And that's what this Kehillah is all about, because that's what your Rabbanim have done from Rab Shamshin Rafal Hirsch through that extraordinary, exalted list that I mentioned earlier. I think I might have mentioned, a Talmud of the Rebbe Rabbi Yonason Eibeshitz, asked him, I was invited to be a Rav. What's my mission? Any of you who have been in Prague might visualize this story a little bit better than I'm going to say it. If you remember, across from the Alt Neushul of the Maral, there's the High Shul. The High Shul is where the Bezdin sat, and Rabbi Yonason, who was a Rosh Yeshiva and Rosh Bezdin, he was never the Rav, that was his place. If you go to the window, you're able to see the world-famous clock in the central plaza of the Jewish Quarter. That extraordinary clock that goes counterclockwise with Hebrew letters. And Rabbi Yonason took his Talmud and said to him, look at the clock. You see it? He says, yeah, of course. He says, look down. What do you see? He says, it's rush hour. I see people. What are they doing? He says, they're coming back and forth. But what are they doing when they pass the clock? So he looked and observed, and he saw how everyone took out their pocket watch, and they would adjust exact time, and they would correct their watches and keep moving. He said, excellent. I want to ask you a question. Why is that clock so high that you have to crane your neck to see it? Wouldn't it be simple if the clock was only like 6 feet, 6'2" high? Everybody would walk by, they would look exactly, they would have no question, they wouldn't have to strain their necks, and it would work. The Talmud said, that's a very good kasha. I don't know why. He said, that's the answer to your first question. What's my mission? What's the essence of Rabbanis? If the clock was reachable and it was on your level, you wouldn't adjust your watch to the clock. You'd go over and change the clock and say, I'm right and the clock's wrong. And every single person would do it. And no one would have the correct time. The clock has to be so high, so elevated that no one could reach and touch it. A Chalila v'chas tried to adjust it. And everyone is compelled to adjust themselves accordingly. Young man, that's your job. Das heißt Rabbanis. This Kehillah, for well over a century and a half, almost a century and a half, has had a clock that was Mutzav Arza V'Roisha Magia Hashamayma, and everyone adjusted themselves according to that clock. Rav Mantel came and he became that clock on the first day, and the results are here. Roimamus, maintaining the Roimamus of this Heilige Kehillah. Yozoicha. I was going to say hands over the mantle, but that wouldn't sound well. Rav Mantel hands the baton No, the torch. And says, this is the way it is here. And you've selected so well. We just heard. That message, that's the mission. And the Rav, the new Rav soll sein gesund, is already on that job. To Rav Mantel, how do we all, I'm a guest. I hope to consider myself more than a guest. The Thursdays, the Shabbos Shuvas, the Pesach, unfortunately since COVID, we're Zooming rather than shaking hands. But it was such an honor and such a delight to come back, so that I could personally, and with Shemaya Ka'oina, be mitzi perhaps, my Yedidim who invited me, to say, what a thank you, Rav Mantel, you let none of us down. You only raised us up. Our tefillah is that we remain on that level that you brought us to. And that as you go on and become that great clock in a new kehillah, new vicinity, a new neighborhood, everybody will appreciate and understand that the time is always right. At that time that I was here, 20 years ago, I cited Rab Shamshon Fol Hirsch's Teich in the Oren. The Oren has 3 kestelach. 2 that are Zahav, and inside is Atzei Shitim. And Rab Shamshon Fol Hirsch says, the Mibayis and Michutz are metal because those parameters are immutable, unshakable, metal, and pure. Yet that can become sometimes static. We need a lebedigkeit. We need chidush. Chidush is represented in atzei shitim because they grow and flourish. But within those parameters, within those unshakable, unmovable walls, immovable walls. I said it then as a hope and as a bracha, and today I say it as a testimony and a thank you for living Rab Shamshon Fol Hirsch's Oren in this kehillah, keeping it in its golden parameters, and yet flourishing from inside with chidush and peres, which is atzei shitim. Soll der Eibishter helfen und geben, that the Rav Shlita, together with the Rebbetzin, because he can't do it alone, should bring his remarkable stamp, his remarkable perfect balance of Rab Shamshon Fol Hirsch's Oren across the seas to people who are yearning for that as well. And that the new Rav soll sein gesund und stark, who I had the pleasure of meeting last week and again this week, and now hearing him and knowing how well you've chosen, soll solche sein to lead, if I may say, this neighborhood is all about heights, to greater, newer heights, the heights of the clock that never sinks and always rises. Mazel tov, mazel tov. The Eibishter soll helfen. We should come together only for simchas and hear psuras toivus, one from the other.
has to use the microphone for the next one, for the final.
It has been my zechus over the last number of years to introduce the Rav. The only thing that I have left to say, looking at the esteemed dais, is to quote the founder of our Kehillah, Rav Breuer, when Schwab was inaugurated into as the Rav in the Kehillah. I was a little bit too young to be there, but I was told Rav Breuer said, "Shnayim tovim me'echad." So, without any further introduction, I'll ask Rav Mantel to please address us.
Rav shlita, Rav Gelvert, Rabbonim HaChashuvim, Kol HaKol HaKodesh Hazeh. Before I start, I want to tell you I have a difficult legacy. Rav Gelvert said, "Tisku v'lo sorio." That's not so easy for me. So I try to be Mekayim his words. Chazal say, "Harbe lomadti miraboisai." I've learned a lot from my teachers. Mechaver hayoyse mehem. Doesn't work. From my friends, more than them. Umitalmid hayoyse mikulam. From my students, more have learned more than from all the others. I cannot say I learned a little from my Rebbes. Difficult to say that. But that I learned a lot from Chaverim and from Talmidim, that's very, very, very clear. So I started to concentrate, to think a moment. What do I take with me from my Chaverim and Talmidim from Washington Heights? What did I learn from them? The first thing is the entire foundation of this Kehillah. I learned Mesiros Nefesh. That's number one. Mesiros Nefesh after a destruction, a terrible Chorban in Europe, that G'dolei Yisrael had the courage and the will and the power to start from zero. And families had the power and the will to start from zero from the very beginning. Unbelievable Mesiros Nefesh that brought to set up a Kehillah Kadoshi Ir Ve'em Yisrael. Worldwide, everybody knows about Kaladas Yishurim. Mesiros Nefesh that has to be learned. The Kehillah was an example, a living example for me. Adayem Hazeh. The second thing is Yiras Shomayim. Unquestionable Yiras Shomayim. I remember when we came here, there were still a lot of representatives of the old generations. Old generation people were born in Germany, who brought over the Yiras Shomayim from Germany, from Frankfurt, and from other cities. I don't will mention names, people who stand before my eyes representing the Yiras Shomayim, who are not anymore, unfortunately, around with us. Definitely, Yiras Shomayim, this unquestionable Yiras Shomayim, and the dedication to whatever is holy and right, without being diluted by any outside influences. That's what I take with me. I try to take with me. I learned in this killer, tznius, not showing off, unlike the American society. People don't have to know what you do. People don't have to know what you have. And nevertheless, you don't pull out of your obligations. You do, and you give. But everything with tznius. Everything in a quiet, unassuming way. If you would tell thank you, they will look at you. Why? What did I do? If you acknowledge good masim, they will look, why? What did I do? This skill is built on tznius, Today might be we suffer from that on the American continent. Our kashrus went down because people do not understand what kashrus without compromise means. Kashrus where the Rav doesn't earn a penny from the hashgacha. What does that mean? People don't understand that today. I told to one Adam Godlo I was very close to, I told him, a European one, a Hasidic one, a Talmud of the Shebina Rav, Moshe Chaim Shmerler. I told him, the streimel of the lot of Rabbonim HaMachshirim are bigger than my streimel, but my kashrus is better. What can we do? We live in a society of bluff, the opposite of tznius, bluff and money. That's what is it. I take with me this message that money doesn't make the rules. Never ever the most wealthy person might be, the most gribus nadvan might be to the yeshiva, ever got involved, one word to say in chinuch. Nothing. Where do you have it today? A little nadvan already thinks he's the boss. That's what we are standing for. Chinuch belongs to the Rabbonim, to Talmidei Chachomim. They did make the decisions. The schus of being a zvulun, that belongs to wealthy people. It's not more than a schus. A schus, that's a merit that they get. They don't have any say. Money doesn't make the rules. I take that with me. I take with me the kvodah Torah of this kehillah. A real kvodah Torah. A real one. What the Rav says, I know it's not so kodesh, but those who hear it, for them it's kodesh kodashim. Where do you see that, such a thing like that? That's what the killer is standing for. The chesed, tremendous chesed that is going on here. Everything on a quiet way. And you another point that belongs to that, one looks up to children. One is machshiv children, one doesn't push children away on the side, that the adults are the rule makers. I feel it so strongly with this wonderful, wonderful minhag that the Rav is benching Friday night the children. He gets a personal relationship with them. He can wish them mazel tov for your little sister who was born this week. You can ask them a quick question, how does it go in school? That builds a relationship. If I may tell you, I asked in Gateshead, I spoke to one Talmud Chochem, I have to speak to the Gaboim. They should install this minik in the main shul where we will daven. To install this minik, I should bless the children. I want a connection to the youth. That's our future. And this kehillah that happens. In this kehillah, there's a connection to the youth and the future. We look back the last 20 years. Some boys were hardly born. And today they're chashuvim. Yeah. Some boys were born later, 19 years ago, 18 years ago. They're on their way to be chashuvim. That gives such a wonderful feeling, an unbelievable satisfaction, unbelievable feeling. It's not my achievement, but my satisfaction is that I was able to witness the atzlocha for the yeshiva and the atzlocha from parents and from families, where they were able to succeed because there's such a kehillah in Washington Heights. I want to tell you, I didn't prepare a long drosha, and Amazla didn't prepare a long drosha. Everything would be bottled after we heard such wonderful words that we heard before. Rashi brings from Chazal yesterday's parsha. Loma nismachu parshas hamenorah leparshas hanesim. Why is the parsha from the menorah mentioned close after the parshas hanesim? Aaron saw the inauguration of the Mishkan, the Nesim. They brought the Karbanas. Chol Shodata, he felt bad that he was not able to participate. Not him and not his Shevet. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, yours is bigger than theirs. That's greater. You will be light, umeitiv es haneres, and fix the neres. You will be lighting and fix the neres. So what's going on? Why is that greater than the Parshas HaNesim? The Ramban brings a medrash. Omala HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe, Leich hamoyer la'Aaron, say to Aaron, Al tisyore, don't fear, don't be afraid. Ligdoyle mizois hatomuchan. You're ready for greater things than a Chanukah's Hanesim. HaKorbonos kol zman shebeis hamikdash kaimim noyagim. Korbonos apply whenever there's a Beis Hamikdash, as long there's a Beis Hamikdash. Aval haneros la'olam. The lights are forever el mul pnei hamenorah yo'iru. They will face the menorah and they will shine forever. So says the Ramban, what's going on? The menorah is also not forever. As long as there's a Beis Hamikdash, there's a menorah. So that this famous Ramban, who says, Le'romzu el neres Chanukah's chashmanoim. It's only a remes, a hint to the Chanukahs of Chashmonoi that will be apply also after the Churban in our Golus. So that's why Chazal say it's not only the time of the Mishkan, of the Mikdash. It's la'olam, neres la'olam el b'pnei hamoros yo'iru. So what's the explanation? Why is the menorah, the lighting of the Chanukas, of the Chanukah, of our Chanukah, is greater than the Chanukah of Yud Beis Nesim? The Torah 12 times reiterates the same korbanos because of the chashivus of the Chanukah's Hanesim. How can you compare the Chanukah of today's Golus to this elevated situation, the elevated matzav in the Mishkan? So I want to read to you what Rab Aaron Leibstein writes in his Pirush on Chumash. Enoch Hanami says, you're right. Chanukah's Hanesim was a gedolah ma'od. The Chanukah Hanesim was very elevated. 12 times the Torah goes over it with all the karbonos. But at the end of the day, what made it happen, the Chanukah's Hanesim? The Chanukah's Hanesim was caused by Nesim bringing karbonos. That means you needed an outside factor to bring to the Chanukah's Hanesim, to the fruition of the Chanukah's Hanesim. And to bring karbonos is limited in place and limited in time. Chanukah's Chashmonuim, what made it happen? Not karbonos, The Chanukah's Chashmonoim came all about not to be a makriv karbonis, but to be a makriv oneself. Mesirus ha'atzmius. Klal Yisrael gave themselves away to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Hakrovas atzmoi. Wo atzmius le nifrat apayim af pameish. Wherever a person goes, he takes his own atzmius, his personality takes with him. Meaning in every situation, he's able to makriv himself, to sacrifice himself, whatever is holy, whatever is good. For Torah and Yiro, he writes. And this Mesirus Nefesh is the one who made happen this Yonte for all generations, and the Adlokas Neres L'Doros Olam B'chol Mokem B'chol Zman. Giving away karbonos is great, but giving away your atzmis, yourself, your own personality, for the good, that is higher, that is more. That's why Shalcho Gedoyla Mishelohem. What you represent with the Mesirus Nefesh of Chashmonoim, that is greater than any carbon that could be brought in the Mishkan. Ubozei writes, Sololu Haderech, the Chashmonoim, the Koyanim, Bnei Chashmonoim, they paved the way to Bnei Yisrael for the future. Lechadish Torah, to bring in a new Torah, Evelotzes, and to leave the darkness of Greek culture and of Yovam. Ulis Chazik, to strengthen oneself and to separate oneself from the hashpor, from the influence of Chachmas Yovam, of Yovan's culture. That's what is so special about Chanukah, the Chanukah, our Chanukah, about Ba'alois Resaneros. If I may say, have a look at this Kila Kedosha. This Kila Kedosha that is precious to us and will remain precious. That one can't erase the impact from a killer. Definitely not after 20 years. That doesn't go away. Yes. My dear Rav Rugovsky, I don't know if I am allowed to carry two flags. One for Washington Heights and one for the future killer. But this flag I will carry for sure. That's not questionable. The flag that we will carry with us is this flag of having learned, having tried Al Kaponim to learn, to give away one's atzmias in the most hopeless situation, in the most difficult situation, with dedication, as given away the atzmias, you be matzliach, and it is at a higher level than any carbon that Kol only brought in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what this kill is standing for, and that's mitalmido yosem mikulam, what we were able to take as a lesson of dedication, of Mesirus Nefesh, of Piras Shomayim, for whatever is holy. Atzmius, give yourself away. It's difficult. So what? It's difficult. Who says it has to be easy? Give yourself away completely, l'shem Shomayim, without any personal ambition. You give yourself away, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes Nisim happen. That's the message we try to take with us, and I hope I will remember this message for a lot of years to come. Wherever one goes, there are nisyonos, there are tribulations, there are tests, there are problems, whatever. If one could take it with wherever people go, if they take away the banner of this Kila Kedosha, wherever they go, that even though it's difficult, and even though it's against the time, the era, the spirit of today's century or whatever, and against the American culture, we do not mind. We use the clock that was set by Gdolei Yisrael, by founders of this Kehillah. This clock that was set, I am also not the one to lower the clock. The clock should remain high, and I adjust my watch to this clock that is ticking all the time. I want to wish you all to be matzliach. We should remain connected. We will remain connected, and we will hear besoras tovos and simchas and good health and hatzlacha. Any hatzlacha from anybody will only help us in our new avodah wherever we are, because it will give us a chizuk, it will give us a good feeling, it will make us pleased and give us a lot of simcha. I thank you for your friendship. for your loyal dedication, for your loyal friendship. And with Hashem, we should hear only bsoros tovos from one another. And believe me, we'll take the banner of Kala Rishon with us wherever we go. Thank you very much.